G'day everybody, this drum video is for Misery Business by Paramore. This song is heaps of fun to play on drums, so let's hop on the kit and I'll start showing you what's going on. The only unusual thing about the grooves we're using in this song is that often we're bringing the second snare drum in on the end of 3 instead of beat 4. But once you get used to that, then a lot of these grooves are going to fall into place. So we start off with just one snare drum on beat 4, and then we kick off into the intro groove that goes like this. 1, 2, 3. We go back around for a second time, and on the second time, at the very end, we just play one snare drum to stop before we go into the first verse. And then the verse grooves are pretty cool. They've got no hi-hats or crashes or anything, but we're just going to add in some toms to really fatten up that groove. So that's going to go like this. For the second half of the verse, we are adding in the hi-hats, but we're going to keep that same sort of feel with that snare drum coming in on the end of 3. Then right before we go to the chorus, we have this big snare drum fill that ends up coming off on beat 3, snare drum and floor tom. So that goes like this. The chorus groove is super straightforward. It's just a pretty standard punk beat up on the crash cymbal. That chorus punk beat morphs into a halftime groove with kick drums 4 on the floor, and then we have a fill at the end of that which moves us into another groove. So let me play the 4 on the floor bit first. And then we have 4 snare drums to the bar with a fill at the end that comes up on beat 3 right before we go back into our riff section, which is just the same as the intro. So let me play the 4 snare drums to the bar just so you know what it sounds like. So then we're back into our riff section, but at the end of this riff section, we have stops. We go back into the verse again, which is identical to the first time around, so just use all that stuff that I've already shown you. The next thing that we need to catch is halfway through the second chorus, the fill is just a little bit different before we end up with the kicks 4 on the floor. And then the 4 snare drums to the bar bit, the fill at the end of that is just a tiny bit different too. So this is what that sounds like. Okie dokie, now we're up to the bridge, and first up we're just playing hi-hats and kick drum, quarter notes, really easy. Then we start to build. We're playing 16th notes on the snare drum, but in the second bar, we're going to bring out some accents, which really spices things up a little bit. So this is how that goes. At the end of those snare drum rolls, we just come off right on beat 3. And then we are back into our groove, just the same as we used for the chorus, but it's more like a guitar solo. There's one little fill right before we add every 8th note on the kick drum. And so then that next groove sounds like this. And then once again we have a fill stopping on beat 3. The next groove is from the section where it's just drums and vocals. The snare drum is on beat 1 and beat 3, and we're filling in the 8th notes with the kick drum. And then at the end, we have this wild fill where you kind of just throw your hands at your snare drum on first tom, and then eventually we'll come back on beat 3, and we'll be ready to go into the next section. And now we're back into our final chorus using just the same groove as we had for all the other choruses, but once again, the fills change just a tiny bit. So before the 4 on the floor kick drums, there is this little fill. And then before the 4 snare drums to the bar, there is this fill. And then before we go back into our riff section, which is the outro, we have this fill. And then the very last fill in the song is the same rhythm that we used in the second chorus, but we're going to move it around the kit. We're going to go snare, first, floor, snare. Now, I think it might be a bit fuller than just that, so you could add kick drums if you wanted, and you could maybe also add crash cymbal or ride cymbal. There's just a lot of extra sounds washing out by the end of the song. So it's up to you how much you want to do, but the rhythm is pretty straightforward, and this is what it will sound like. And there we go, that is how you play Misery Business by Paramore. Now it's a really fun song to play on drums, so I hope that you get all those sections down and you're able to play along with the song. If you've got any questions, pop them in the comments below, but otherwise guys, I will catch you at the next lesson. Happy practicing.